What is theodicy? And I want to give credit to my good friend, Professor Gordon. He's a philosopher at University of Connecticut who taught me, I learned this from him. And I think it's a very useful tool for understanding why arguments and public narratives tend to hit walls and we are not able to do anything about it. So theodicy comes from, you can see theo is linked to God, theology, theodicy. All right. Theodicy is a system of explaining away contradictions. So if you believe, like in the Christian, Euro-Christian idea, that God is perfect, what happens when there's evil? How do you explain evil when you have a perfect God? Like when bad things happen, how do people explain when we start asking, how can God allow this? How can God allow this to happen? Then what are we told? Theodicy is how we explain the presence of evil, the existence of evil in the presence of a just God. So people say that the problem is you didn't understand. You don't understand God's will. So the problem is you. You don't understand God's greater will. So the problem, actually what they're saying is that, no, the problem is you. This has nothing to do with God. God is perfect. God knows. God does everything according to God's will. So anything bad that happens is either human beings ignored God's will or human beings don't know God's will. And so they haven't understood that God has a greater plan. So basically what theodicy is saying, what theodicy is about, is saying that human beings will always be blamed for any problem that arises. God is always blameless. God has no responsibility for evil. Wherever there is evil, it's human beings who are at fault. And then, you know, what this does is that it sets up a God who has to always be explained. Because every time, and that's what the role of the church is, anytime anything goes wrong, you have to be reminded last Sunday that, oh no, that wasn't God, it was you, or it was another human being. But what that also does, the problem with that kind of thinking, which is a theodicy, that's what theodicy does. What the problem with that kind of thinking is that it also creates a problem people. Because if all problems are not linked to God, they are linked to people, then you start creating groups of problem people. So that anytime there's something that happens to them that contradicts your almighty God, you say, oh no, the problem is them. It's not God. So for example, the missionaries will come, will colonize us, and then we say, hey, this God of yours, Lakini, why is God giving us so many problems? Then they'll say, no, it's you, the sinner, who hasn't understood. Or it's you Africans, you don't know the faith very well. First convert to Christianity, then we have a conversation. Because you are the problem. And then it also creates a problem of bad faith. And that's what you saw in this discussion of pastors. You know, because they don't want to say that there's a problem with the way they're thinking of God. They're always saying, no, this question you're asking, it came from the media. Then at one point they tell the Nigerian pastor, no, you don't know Kenya. It's, you know, the problem is somewhere else. It's always somewhere else. Or Sartre said, he was a French philosopher, he said, hell is others. So whenever there's an issue, you don't question God, you question the person. You say it's the person who is a problem. There's no problem with God. God is perfect. But, like I said at the beginning of the class, since the 19th century, God has suffered a credibility problem, especially the Christian God. Let's put it that way. The Christian God has suffered a credibility problem because of the church being involved in injustice in Europe, and that system being overthrown, the church having fought against knowledge and science. Now science has triumphed. So what happened was that narrative of perfection on one side and a problem people on the other has now been picked up by science and picked up by government and institutions. So whenever there's a problem with institutions, people say, no, the problem isn't institutions, it's you who is not seeing the issue. And that's what I faced during CBC. You know, anytime I asked a question, I'd be told, no, it's you who, you're proud, you haven't understood, you know, basically deflecting any kind of critique or question, because the institution must be said to be perfect. And this is where there's now coming to public narratives. This is a public narrative that Kenyans repeat all the time. And it's so insidious and so difficult to refute. They say things like, there's no problem with democracy, the problem is with Kenyans. There's no problem with the leaders, the problem is the Kenyans who vote. There's no problem with our systems, the problem is that Kenyans don't understand it. We are told that all the time and we accept it. We never ask, is this institution as perfect as we are being told to accept that it is? And when you ask those questions, people, like me, I get a lot of bile and pushback. We are told you're negative. Don't you ever see anything positive? You know, do you see anything good? Because basically what those questions are saying is that you cannot question the system. It's perfect. Any contradictions, they come because you're the one inventing them in your mind. It's not, it has nothing to do with the system itself. And then that goes back to what Grace Musila was saying about the gaze. That the problem is my gaze on an institution. But the institution can look at me, but I can't look at it. So if we are told CBC, we cannot ask questions as members of the public because we're not supposed to see anything and ask about it. The gaze is one-sided. It's not, we don't gaze back. So it's an assertion of power. It's a theodicy. Even though God has been removed from that equation, it's still the same logic, the same WhatsApp group. That there are things that are epistemically closed, they cannot be questioned. And if you see any contradictions, the problem is with you. It's you who has not understood the process. It's you who does not know what to do, or it's you who has misunderstood. And then now they start saying things like, we need awareness campaigns. Let's send people to go and educate. But normally, if a thing is really good, you shouldn't have to have awareness. Awareness and NGOs going to sensitize, that's what we call it. If a system is good, it should be intuitive. It should be obvious. People should be able to use it without having to struggle too much. But for me these days, when somebody starts blaming me, I know there's a problem. If they don't answer my question and they say, no, it's you who has not understood, or we need to do a workshop. Let's do a workshop for awareness. Let's call an NGO to come and sponsor a workshop in a hotel. So the more workshops you see and the more committees and task forces and reports, the point isn't to solve anything, it's to protect. It's to protect an institution from questioning. And to make it look like the institution is okay, the problem is the people. And we are told this all the time. The problem is the people, let's investigate what is wrong with the people, and then we'll take out some flyers, do some workshops, do some awareness campaigns, because the problem is the people. That's how we've been kept down for all these years. Our systems are presented to us like God, unquestionable. So it's not only the Christian God that is treated in this way. We've treated science the same way. We've treated technology the same way. We've treated institutions the same way, as unquestionable. And as saying that if there are questions or if there are things that don't work, the problem is the people. The problem isn't the institution. So even like police, you know, when people complain about police brutality, they're told, well, if you obey the law, nothing will happen to you.